head of the G77, which represented poorest countries of the world. He asked for the right to speak on behalf of those nations and 3 times was ignored. Over 100 countries. So out of anger, he stood up and on his chair at sort of 2 in the morning and said, "Madam Chair, these negotiations have to stop."
What they refused to discuss at a conference on population and development was anything related to clean water, basic health care, education, sanitation, etc. So I went in the next day with a handful of other young people. We had made day-glow pink flyers that said these youth do not represent all of the world's youth, and we gave them to all of the delegates. This had the effect of causing total pandemonium, and the negotiations were stalled for nearly 2 hours.
So there was a real sense of the sort of perhaps smaller or poorer countries being coerced by the so-called more powerful nations, and it seemed unjust.
The Western states huddled together, and the developing nations came up to us one by one and said, "Thank you. Thank you for saying this, and thank you for being here." And they said to us, "We need you to be here all the time." And they also said, "Come to our countries and work with our young people." And it allowed the delegates to go back into the negotiations and say to the Western world, not only do you not represent the young people in our countries, but you don't even represent the young people in your own.
Well, many countries were very impressed with that these young people had an agenda that protected the family and an integrated view of the human person, which was in their core beliefs. And they hadn't met other young Westerners who shared the same ideals, and I guess it empowered them, and that they realized that they weren't alone.
You are not alone, my friend. 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 You are not alone, my friend.
I mean, I just think that, like, the liberalism that I had been raised in, like, found its full expression in the dignity of the human person. That, like, it was my first encounter with a consistent view of the human person, and it was very distressing to me to realize that, because obviously, like, politically there was a lot of, like, lining up and letting go that had to happen, but you know, just realizing the things that I had taken for granted from, you know, being raised, like, in a pro-choice liberal household did not really square with actual compassion and, you know, respect for the person. And it was very difficult but very exciting to see the way that these ideologies were playing out at the international level, and then, you know, at a personal level in the lives of people around me, and experience this very radical change of worldview.
And I remember actually sitting around the kitchen table, I guess the afternoon it was founded, and she just called home and said, you know, there's a group of young people here, they're claiming to speak on behalf of all the world's young people. We need to say they don't represent all the world's young people, so we need to get membership right away from all over the world of young people who believe that, you know, for development are necessary, you know, education, clean drinking water, sanitation, healthcare, like all of these other very basic necessities. And So she was just like, call up all your friends, get them to sign up. We've just started, World Youth Alliance, and so we just called up every friend we had, every youth group, every young contact we could think of.
I sat there and was just completely blown away by everything she was saying. And for the first time in my, interest in doing something good for the world, I thought it's beneficial that I studied this engineering thing to know something technical about how to develop, but it's so much more important that this correct understanding of this person and this ethics and assumptions behind development be done right. And I had never thought of it in that light. And after the presentation, I went up to her and I'm like, look, I'm writing my thesis. I don't know what I can do for you. I don't know anything. Here's my email. Email me. And then I got an email and whatever. I met with the past president and she was like, oh, why is so great? And I'm like, yes, it is. And I applied for an internship, and the day that I got that internship was the happiest day of my life. I was super happy. I went on the street, and my friend was doing this crazy pro-life campaigning, which normally I'd be afraid to do. And she's like, can you distribute this? And I'm like, yes, I will, because I'm so happy. So I just these things. And people took them from me because I looked so happy they thought it would make them happy, but it didn't. It was a great day.
Anna and I met at the Cairo Plus 5 conference, and I'm not really quite sure what the substance of our first meeting was, but it was literally Anna, we met at some cocktail at 7, and she was still talking at about 10:30. The thing was, I was actually completely intrigued by the whole thing. I wasn't ready to get out of it.
And Mark just one day decided that he was going to join the World Youth Alliance full-time. And so he had just bought a bed, and he put it on his car, because they paid him at his former job.
He sort of described my beginning of the World Youth Alliance as if I sort of left everything and sort of just brought myself up here and sort of made this decision. The fact is that the decision was already made for me at that point. Whether or not that was God or Anna or maybe they're the same person. But basically, it was just this sort of compelling force that drew me up to New York.
She told me and shared with me her dream for building World Youth Alliance Europe, and I was immediately really excited about the whole idea.
Anna took a German class in Salzburg, and I had a good friend who took an English class in Salzburg, and for some reason they met. And that guy told me that there is this one young woman who always says the same things that I say. And he said, you guys have to meet. And he organized the meeting, and it was true that I heard then Anna say all the things that I have been saying. And this was an instant beginning of a very long friendship that had many consequences. And I am still amazed at what somebody with a piano degree can actually get done. As you know, I have a law degree.
We showed up to Anna. Just that was the bit, like we didn't capture much, but this is what she said.
I had been working for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization in Senegal, where I'd already lived before, and I was involved with preparing documents about the migration issue. And during this time, they were always discussing about the question of various forms of the family, and it was a debate that lasted like 3 days before we could get an agreement on using or not using this word. And I couldn't grasp why was it such a problem. But I felt there was something wrong. And then a few months later, I'm at a conference, and this girl is one of, the girls just running around looking for a hairdresser. And I'm kind of mean with her, and I say, well, you take an ironing thing and it will be fine, your hair will be flat and it's okay. And then I realized she's actually the speaker. And she starts speaking about the UN and the language that's used there and the misuse of language and how careful we should be about it. And then I realized, I suddenly understood all the little pieces came into place, and I understood what was going on because I had really lived it. So it was not a conspiracy theory or something like that. It was really, I've experienced it. So I was very impressed by what she was saying. and listened more carefully, maybe than I had not met her. And then she finished by saying, we need people, we're starting an office in Brussels, you will get no money, you will get no success.
I readily said yes without really knowing what actually that entails for me. It also required, Gudrun was very honest, and I really, really loved it. A part of the experience where the organization was just starting up. There was a lack of finances. We had everything we needed, but that was all very, very modest.
Our first salary was €50 a month, which in the US is about $50.
And this decision was a very important turning point in my life. Obviously, I was at the beginning trying to see what sort of career I would find and follow, which path. And so my parents were disappointed. They were kind of hoping for me to work in the European Union, obviously, but with another role, and the more elegant role. And this was very hard for them, that I was saying, well, I'm going to Brussels to kind of fight for the values that we were taught by them, actually. So it was a bit difficult, this resistance, but it was 1,000% worth it. I never regretted anything. We were short of everything, except enthusiasm, ideas, and fun.
We just got going. Basically, there was no manual. There wasn't anybody a lot older who could really guide us, but we had this vision, we had this plan, and we just got going.
The structures were just there in thought, but they were not yet very concrete. So in a way, we all came together to think about how shall we go about this. For me, the European branch, we thought about how to reach the different countries and the different languages and backgrounds people have, how to bring everyone together in Brussels, how this could be done.
And we ended up sitting at the bank of the road. And then there was this famous look of Gudrun straight to my eyes and saying, what do you want to do in life? And I said, well, actually, I am just finishing my studies and I'm in Poland and, I would love to do something worthwhile. And that was the moment when Gudrun said that they need a fourth member, that they are thinking about somebody from this part of Europe.
We got together to consolidate our plan for the year, and Anna came over and we were in Gudrun's apartment, but it was so cold. We sat with like 2 blankets each, a pot of tea in front of us. The windows were so old and so I mean, they was almost like blown out. So it was cold, but we stuck together and produced a plan.
Coming from Croatia, which is a small, beautiful but very, very troubled country, where we just had we are still living the aftermath of the war. And we are building a new young democracy. So being part of an international organization of young people who were so willing to work on a positive building both of the human person but also of the society, to me was just so remarkable and so comforting and so inspiring that in a sense I would compare it even to a certain sense of healing which I had as a personal process. I met beautiful people in whom I started believing that there is a hope for our world.
And we really spent a few months together in New York to think about the different groups and the people, to start initial contacts in order to then strongly bring together people of goodwill and interest in Brussels in order to speak in one voice on human dignity to the European institutions.
At first we wanted to organize a conference to get a lot of young people involved. That was our mission. And then to be able to present them also to parliamentarians who are trying to do the right thing by telling them, you have young people who actually believe in what you say, but you need to show them that you are willing to speak about this. And so it was double. It was creating this network with the young people, different youth organizations. There was a lot of also my role. And then there was also the meeting parliamentarians trying to get rendezvous and so on. And so, yes, it was doing so many things at the same time.
We began a bit like in New York. So we went to the European Parliament. We followed the debates. We began to network across Europe. We kind of split it between our different language skills. So I dealt with more Portugal and Spain and a bit in France.
World Youth Alliance Europe kept a number of us very busy. Olli, Leila, Slinka and me primarily, and a number of interns. But there's quite a lot that I can say that we actually achieved. First of all, it was the first time that European youth organizations with a focus on protecting dignity would come together. First time. They didn't know each other before. You see, Europe is not a big place, but amongst the different countries there was no exchange. So we brought these people together, from which a lot initiated bilaterally. Secondly, for the first time, there was a voice at international institutions, in this case the European institutions, that spoke up in the name of youth in favor of protecting dignity. Also, this was not seen before.
And so the conferences were always very, very well sought after, and would have always great speakers.
It just snowballed, so it just developed incredibly, and people were hugely generous to us, welcoming us in Belgium to the different cities that we were invited to. People opened up their homes, they cooked for us, they took care of us, and we developed some really very special friendships.
We established a human rights representation that focused on the language of being, as we would say today, on the language of dignity. We had a number of very concrete achievements that I'm still very proud of. For example, the European Parliament issued a ban on human cloning is really due to our work.
There was the Nice summit, where all the heads of the European states would be. But what we did was come up with the idea of Tony's clonies. So what we did was we got face masks of Tony Blair. We wore white overalls to look like lab technicians, and it went viral. It was the first time that it was the beginning of images going sort of viral on the internet around the world.
And I think at that time we were not yet so in tech that, you know, we would see how many clicks our website got. I think that now we would be more looking at these aspects. But at that time, we were just working so hard.
And the main European newspapers took pictures, and some put us even on the front cover. But we also handed out condolence leaflets for the death of Dolly the clone sheep.
She died. I remember putting all these leaflets in the press room. I was so scared to be found out. And it was very funny. It was just one of these evenings where everybody's in the little room that Gudrun was sharing with 20 people at the time. And you know, we were just like, R.A.P., Dolly, and so on. And then we made it. And it got the press because it was funny and it was interesting. And the document gave also the information that had to do with stem cell research and with all these cloning issues.
And in the end, somebody in the speech in the parliament waved our paper and said, look at what I just got. And here's the reason why we all need to vote against human cloning. Very creative, very unconventional. We were able to make a serious impact that I believe still today we can say produced a lasting impact on what's going on.
Working for an international organization and also getting, you know, being at any way exposed to the international circles, you would very easily slip into this motivation that actually you are gaining something for yourself, or prestige, or contacts, or building your CV, or you know, gathering nice experiences around the world. World Youth Alliance is, in that sense, different, and that's what I appreciate very much.
And very often we were made fun of, or ridiculed, or, oh, but you're only an organization with 200,000 people. Well, you know, that's not very interesting for us. When it had taken us so much trouble to get these names, these personal, I want to be part of the World Youth Alliance, I signed the charter. So it's for every person that does this, we know that there are 10 who agree but don't take the step. But when you're ridiculed in public, and they go very quickly to the persona, well, physically, I mean, you get completely red, your heart beats faster, you don't have any saliva anymore, and still you have to speak up and stay calm. And it's very difficult afterwards to keep your calm and also be open to understand that they really have another vision. Because, I mean, also in the UN, we would meet super aggressive people.
And I would come home from the United Nations and tell me stories about, the kind of things that were happening there. And, this delegate got taken into a closed room and grilled for hours about that. And, this NGO is doing this. And it was a real awakening for me because I found that I didn't have much sympathy for the people that I thought I supported.
You build your skin tougher, and it also questions your... It's good to be questioned, that's for sure. But then you realize that you're actually right, and there's nothing to be done about that, except work harder to try to get the message across.
We had all these nights that were just unreasonably late sometimes when we were first starting with Esperanza, sitting at 3:30 in the morning deciding over sentences in paragraphs that probably were never read by anyone, including ourselves. but having these ridiculously late nights. And during that cloning debate, I remember putting this flyer together one evening and being so delirious the next morning. I had this thing, and I walked up to a table like this, those ones that all the literature is put on outside the negotiating rooms, and having this thought, wouldn't it be really funny if I just took this stack of 100 flyers and put them into equal stacks across the, it was like, why is cloning bad? Or I forget what the question was, but to me, this was the funniest thing in the world, that these flyers were sort of being cloned everywhere on literature tables around. I spent hours doing this on every table.
Did you shut it down? Or
No.
I am Jesus Rivera. I was regional director for Latin America. We were hosted in the convent. We were hosted first in a convent in the north area of Manhattan.
I can clean on the table.
You can do a side eat. Basta casual lang.
Can I drink from my fake mug na I put na?
Yes.
I am Tamara Tan Azania, but I'm called Tam, and I was the regional director for Asia Pacific. One moment. I will just be a cow for a bit. Okay.
I think it would help to backtrack a bit because it all really started because I was given the opportunity to do an internship with Waya in New York. And this was the non-fancy internship, meaning we were not in the middle of the Upper East, nowhere near the Upper East Side. We were at the outskirts. That's a nice way of putting it.
We had shelves for our food, right? And of course, I got the lowest one, and there's Philip Hunt who had to use the highest one. And you talk about the things that you learned at Waya. Well, I learned how to survive. And because no one else would kill the cockroaches, I killed the cockroaches, flying ones, because it was hot. It was September, I think, when we started. It was so hot, the windows were open, and this giant cockroach came in. Yes, I killed that one. I was very proud of myself.
I had such a great internship experience, and I was really with such a great group of interns and coworkers and colleagues that I guess the only answer was sure. I mean, yes, why not? And then we had to figure out the rest. So I came back for an extended internship just to now understand how it works on a regional level, because at that time, the scope of work is different. So the added responsibilities, what does membership look like? What does activity on a regional level look like? How do you engage all these partners? Because I think anyone who's become active with Waya on the regional level, you come to understand that it's not just the work of a single team or a single office. You really need everyone. Private sector, public sector, academia, all these other interesting people doing stuff in the arts, in the sciences. So it's really a collaborative, I think that was the beginning of my understanding of a collaborative approach to the kind of work that we were doing.
We ran out of hot water in the convent, and it was the middle of the winter in New York. So when Gustavo went to take his shower, I started hear him screaming. I didn't understand what. When he came back to the dorms, he told me, "Hey, it's your turn. Go to take your shower. It's a little bit cold, but be a man and take your shower." And I said, "Okay, no problem." So I went to take my shower. Of course, I didn't scream.
While we were at the OAS in Puerto Rico, we were having a very, very hard time. We can say from that memory that we replicate what Anna used to tell about the pandemonium story. But after that story happened, we were sitting outside of the venue of the hotel where the conference was held. We were having this conference, and we were taken out by the police guards. And afterwards, we were sitting down with sad faces, and just Jesus was talking to us about the importance of this message, on why these guys took us out of the venue. And in that very moment, a pigeon just happened to put some poop in Jesus' head. So
we used to suffer the noise of the birds outside the house. I don't know if they were pigeons or what, but we used to hit the wall with a pillow in order to scare them away. So let us sleep when they started crawling like 5 or 6 a.m. And then we discovered that they had a nest inside the wall. So that after 1 month of suffering the pigeons, we discovered that the nest was basically inside the house. So we had to clean all of that.
I guess that's when it became very real that it's not glamorous. It was never about the money. It wasn't even about New York. The work that we do, with or without heating or air conditioning, is going to happen. With or without a stipend, you're going to find young people who will want to do this because it's what we have to do. It's what we want to do. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. Like, there were those high moments of like, oh, you're all dressed up, taking the A train down to the UN, or like dinner at the Harvard Club. And then you go home to the Pogue and you're eating food donated by the Friars. Like, we have like week-old cake. And that's fun. You just spread Nutella over it. And, you know, it was being able to experience, I guess, those two sides of New York.
It was wonderful in the sense that it gave you a different perspective, because in these discussions you would have people who came from, you know, different parts of the world, thought of it differently, and it was just so enlightening.
It challenged us in every way. It was difficult to start an organization from zero in our country.
Nothing. We didn't have a table. We didn't have a laptop. So we were the first 3 months, Caroline worked from her house. Then when I joined her, we started to put things together. So we would ask for donations from well-wishers. I remember someone gave us a desktop. She had a few friends from Strathmore University who donated a cabinet and a table. And then we had a friend who allowed us to use his office as we tried to settle there. So he like sub-rented the office to us. Unfortunately, 3 months down the line, apparently he never used to pay rent. So everything was auctioned. Everything that people had donated to us was auction, and we had to follow up. We didn't have any constant funds. I remember we would go for months without funds and sometimes using our money to pay rent.
Maybe I don't remember that we were paid, but we were having really a very small amount of payment. It was kind of petty cash what we had, but I can say that we were paid with anecdotes, with good friendships.
Gustavo was the first one to quit his job. Then I left mine, and we started the region, the office.
But now we were alone. We were trying to get things running, and it was not easy. So every step in the process of establishing the office was, I just remember carrying the desktops myself. Everything, we even brought one computer from New York without paying taxes or something like that. I was carrying all the things from the office by myself, as I was the director of operations.
In the first few months of the office, I would say the office, we had nothing. So we had no money. We were still figuring out a way to fundraise for the region. So for the most part, I was working from home, trying to think of ways that we could get an office, a physical office, a place where basically it was more important in the sense that there's a place that people could go if they wanted to learn more about our work. And at the same time, where people could gather. I think those, in my mind, were the top two most important reasons for having an office.
We all basically wanted to do something for our country. And we felt like this was one way of doing it. Everyone was really very different. Like, that's for sure. Like, we all had different opinions on certain things. But at the core of it all, we just wanted to do something that was right. We wanted to work for the dignity of the person, in understanding it better, articulating it better, defending it, whether it's through our projects or through our advocacy at the United Nations, through local or national legislation. That's what we wanted to do, and we were going to do it.
In our time, I love this because this was like in the age of dinosaurs.
And those days, internet was not easy to find. There was no Wi-Fi. So we could only work in the office where we had a bit of connection of internet. But the small office was very vibrant. We had internships ongoing, about 2 to 3 people every 3 months. So with time, we had WIRE registered in Kenya. We put all the legal formalities in place, and young people embrace this message.
I listened to Anna talk about those things morning, afternoon, evening. It struck a major mind shift for me. And now, just back up a little bit, a year or so before then, being one of the youth groups that was prominent in Plateau State for promoting youth awareness on HIV and AIDS then, we're even on television. We had gotten the attention of an international NGO, and their African regional director came all the way from, I think, Geneva. That must be UNFP or so. And, you know, and she was visiting Plateau State, and our group was the foremost group she met with. We had great interaction and all of that. And there was a conversation around how they would support our work, you know, scale it, amplify it. And of course, that has to do with adolescent reproductive health and adolescent reproductive rights. And, you know, what that, you know, implied, you know. And I was open to that, you know. For me, it looked great, you know. But that interaction, that encounter with the World Youth Alliance, with Anna in September, changed everything. Now there was a tension between dignity of the human person and the work I do. And I experienced what I call a 360-degree turnaround in my mentality about my work, about the dignity of the person. I started promoting that, what it meant that I had to forego some kind of opportunities and all of that. Got into the room and then started warming up to that environment. The next day, smiley face, you know, shows up. Melinda, and then, of course, I started that process of spending 3 months in New York.
Training was super hardcore. So it was Ubujindami, which was our core reading list. Then there was our Track A and Track B training program, which was very intense. A lot of the advocacy and policy were like specific things. It was just ideas.
For anyone who was new in philosophy, it was quite something. It took time to understand, but there were some other articles that were very relevant to us as a continent. It was a plus. It really made us understand what we were really supposed to do and how we were going to take it forward.
Meeting the World Youth Alliance, I call them the first 6 sitting on a table from different continents and discussing the charter. The fact that we could just work together and nobody cared who comes from where and what accents you have, and it was just one big family. So this has been very interesting, very cherishable.
And I remember the first time we introduced it to Rwanda. We went to Rwanda, I think, 10 years after the genocide. And it was like young people were really waiting for us to go here. It was fully embraced. I think it's the region that we trained most of the young people.
We work very closely with young people in Rwanda who have said, we're rebuilding our country for peace, and we understand the importance of ideas. Bad ideas have killed our families, and now this can be an idea that can unite us and can be the foundation of what we will build in the future.
And one success story is Obadiah's, who became the president of World Youth Alliance. And I remember he was the best while doing Track A, and we tasked him to train more other young people in Kigali, And he did a lot of work in Kigali University and the surrounding universities.
It is difficult in the beginning. When you speak about human dignity, it's a philosophical message. It's abstract sometimes. And they would wonder, what are you talking about? And then we had to articulate these points to make them real. For example, where you live should be clean. Why? Because you're a human being and you're dignified and you deserve this.
Being given that kind of framework in the training allowed us to apply that to everything that we did. So I think whether it was drafting policy or creating proposals or talking to partners, that was so very helpful. For example, in policy, the basis of the idea, like where should the idea be anchored? Where is it rooted? How should we anchor it? And then it goes from there. And therefore we say why this policy can be improved or why there's an area of opportunity with regard to making this so much better.
The everyday scene of children who are old enough to be our members, not going to school, knocking at your window, or just outside our office, there is that heaviness and that feeling of responsibility. Okay. She's fallen asleep. Like, if you're talking about foreign aid, then something definitely more sustainable would be helpful. Like, we need water, clean water. We need a roof over our heads. We need education, basic education, roads. Just for children to get to school is a problem. Another problem would be the food that they have. Like, some kids don't go to school because they don't have food to bring to school for lunch.
This doctoral candidate who was sharing his research on development and the environment, and then he was speaking about farming and crops, and we were asking questions about the ethics around GMOs and all this. But then someone asked, with this growing population, what do you think is your solution to the fact that you are seeing there is more hunger and we are unable to feed ourselves. And he very naturally said, smart farming. We need to farm smartly so that we are able to feed ourselves. And if we farm smartly, then no one is going to go hungry. And I thought, wow, that was very interesting, because the answer you always get is, don't have children. People should delay having children, or just have two, or, you know. So that was quite an interesting answer that I thought smart.
Because most of these countries have untapped resources, and they lack the basic inputs to their own economy. They don't need the human capital to be reduced further.
So it's so frustrating when they give these answers, contraception, as opposed to something that's needed, like something that can help with a water source. That means the money that should be going elsewhere isn't going there.
So if it is in matters health, you can have millions and billions of contraceptives and condoms coming. Is it what people want? Is it the need at the time? Could they maybe do with, I don't know, Panadols and mosquito nets? You know, like, what is the need of the people at that time?
And just for women to be able to go to school and read, for our girls to read, they're losing sight on what is essential, on these basics that we're not even getting. And so when you do come up, when you do hear of these Band-Aid, not even solutions, it gets very frustrating, because you see that you have these beautiful families that need so much more, and those that want to help fail to see what they really do need. And a lot of it is even just recognizing their humanity.
Because the message young people get always is you are very overpopulated. Your country is overpopulated. You're going to, I don't know, you will not manage to feed yourselves. You need to stop having children, or you need to have one child or 1.5, you know. But the question to ask, is this true? Are there ways this can be approached?
No, it didn't surprise me. Everything I felt was just copy-pasted from, like, international documents, you know. I'm Aliyah Simafranca, and I'm from the southern part of the Philippines, an island called Mindanao, and I am Filipino Muslim. They call us neophytes, first-term congressmen who believed in the same thing and said, let's form a group and let's go around the Philippines and talk to young people about the RH bill, and let's just educate them.
Because we are born with dignity. That is very important in a legislator's job. Now, dignity begets rights. I give you a right because I understand you're a person. Now that is clear, let's go back to the RH bill. Some people will say, let's just get this done and over with. Let's vote on the RH bill. Why don't we just pass the RH bill? Some people will say that. It's so nonchalant. Bakit controversial itong issue? Why do we have to debate on it over and over again? The answer is simply, the reproductive bill is about the person. It is about you, and it defines the rights to your dignity. That is what the RH bill will do. The RH bill is entitled Reproductive Health, Responsible Parenthood, Population Development, and it also includes maternal health. Now, if you look at the RH bill, yes, it seems like a good bill. We're helping women. Wow, we're trying to improve the economy of the Philippines. We're trying to make it better. Number one, you have to learn and you have to look into the premise that overpopulation is the cause of poverty. Please study it. There are so many reasons that debunk that theory.
So we went to this high school, an all-girls high school, and so population came up as one of the, I guess, the inspirations of the RH bill. And she said, you know, because the Philippines, it's like a tub. You know, you fill it up with so much dirty water. You know, you fill it up with so much dirty water, and it starts to overflow with dirty water. And that's what's happening with the Philippines. We're overflowing with dirty water. And I couldn't take it. I said, wow, this girl's probably, I don't know, 13 or 14 years old. And she thinks people, her analogy of people is dirty water. Her analogy of overpopulation is dirty water flowing out of the tub. You know, so I had to, you know, I answered her and I said something like, you know, people aren't dirty water, and started to talk about the dignity of the person.
What comes first? Ano po yung una? Dignity or human rights? It's human dignity because you are born with it. Once you know that, once you recognize na may pagkatao ako from birth, from conception till now, and as a representative of the state, where I am aware that my job is to protect the dignity of every Filipino, I have decided to oppose it. And I hope you understand that your primary and fundamental right is your freedom of conscience. Please understand that you have dignity.
It's just a matter of utilizing human resources. And I started getting into the argument of how human resource is really the best resource. And I mean, you know, it's not even religious. It's human resource is the best resource. It's economic. It's just a matter of countries, the leaders of the countries knowing how to use that resource, and knowing how to save other resources, or, you know, if we talk about environment, knowing how to manage basically the whole country. And it's not so much one is over the other. There's overpopulation, too many humans, and too little resources. But humans are also a resource, and the best resource that we can have.
You have to nurture the dignity of the person. You have to nurture people. And that's where education, healthcare, and jobs generations come in.
We think the premise that fixed resources
and equitable distribution requires fewer individuals is not only flawed, but inconsistent with our human dignity. Population management programs categorize human beings as laborers rather than essential participants. Long-term economic development. Population management programs ignore the root causes that hinder development, such as corruption, lack of basic human rights, and education and infrastructure. We think that cultural and human capital is the world's most important resource. Join us. Join us. Join us. Join us. Join us. Join us. Join us.
On the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development, the World Youth Alliance, a global coalition of young people, welcomes the theme of the 47th Commission and looks forward to the review of the implementation of the 1994 Cairo document during this session. While much progress has been achieved in implementing the program of action, there remains much room for improvement in the areas of reproductive health, sustainable development, the family, and especially maternal health.
At the UN, we're faced with a variety of these issues every day. We are always talking about reproductive health and reproductive rights and abortion and cloning and assisted reproductive technologies and population control, population management. And I think you need to know this as well, because this is what's being discussed in any political philosophy class. These are the examples that are being discussed in any of the morals or ethics classes. These are the assumptions that are at the base of any history class, any class on women or gender studies, any class that touches on colonialism or neocolonialism or imperial Americanism almost any class that's looking at any philosophy or theory whatsoever in the humanities is touching on all of these ideas.
What was wrong in capitalism and Marxism, relativism, nominalism from the past, population control policies, this mindset of viewing persons in a utilitarian way.
I was just like, I guess, running to you and telling you that how frustrated I was with like measuring human happiness through certain indicators or welfare for people through like some sort of a weighted index that sums up how we're going through with policy, like which policy measure we're going to take next. And it just felt raw and it felt rigid. And this is where WIA came in for me to make the contribution, I think, that I wrote about for my DPhil application next year, which is, well, I don't think this is the best way to think about the welfare of people if we don't consider who they are as a person and them as a human and just more complex than a mere index for what it measures for them. I mean, I realize the importance of the index to kind of know a certain trend or a statistical behavior, but that's not the entire story.
I think often the problem is in these advocacy and public communication things, people start from their ideological position, from their, let's say, principles, values, constructs, ideological constructs, and then they start like deductively explaining that. And when they deductively come to the experience of people, they already lost them because the people were not there in their first principles from the beginning. So you have a perfectly logical conclusion, but they say, but this conclusion is not for me. It doesn't touch me existentially. So I think what we need to do is to change the approach, and I think WIA does that, starting from the experience of people.
So the RH bill was very important to us in many ways because we really recognized at that moment that the work we understood we had to do, which was to really be able to influence this entire area of policy, which required programs we could implement and link to policy through funding, needed to be developed. We couldn't work with our allies. We have people in parliaments and congresses all over the world who are ready to work with us, who are desperate for different ways of implementing these programs that are being brought to their countries, and these did not exist. So that was the moment where we really started to begin to develop these responses. FEM, a response for women's reproductive health, how we see the implementation of the political commitments that countries have made at the level of funding and local national implementation, and the human dignity curriculum as an answer to, again, political commitments that countries have made for the implementation of programs in their schools. So first, we're going to go through FEM.
Ta biyu kuma sai ki cire ganye akan na biyu din gaba ki daya. The third day. Next one. Sai na rana ta uku ki zo ki cire wannan din kuma duka gaba ki daya kai. Now, after some when you see the blood finish, when the blood finishes, you now have some days when they are dry. You don't see anything at all. Now those days, don't remove anything, just keep it. Wai bayan kin cire wayancan din akwai lokacin da zaki gani kwata-kwata baki sake ganin al'adan ki din ko rana ta 4 ko 5 ko 6. Keep it. Sai kar ki cire ganye a kai ki bari. So those dry days, we count dry days too. Let's say this is the first dry day, second dry day, third dry day.
Aka yi magana aka yi koyaswa akan yi al'ada nan. To gashi nan na fado ciki kuma an tamake ne ga yadda za a yi ga yadda za a yi. Wai bayan yanzu wai an gama koyaswa mana wai ki gaya mata yadda kika ji a cikin koyaswa din.
Before and after FEM, after the class.
Abin da na tunta a ciki shine in na fara period.
So we have finished our class on fertility education and medical management. How did you find it? Was it useful? Did it help you to understand your body?
Yes, it helped me well. I enjoy it.
Okay.
especially the day that you count for me, for us, that you count this day, up to that day, so you can avoid the 3 days. I don't know it before, but today I learned it.
And you're happy about it?
I'm happy about it.
Women have the right to decide freely and responsibly on the number and spacing of their children. So this obviously doesn't allow for coercion, and it guarantees women the equal right to men. So men have this right too. And the problem is we have a lot of countries where you have family planning targets. So they'll say, we need to make sure this percentage of women by this time start using contraceptives. And UNFPA actually advocates against the use of these targets, saying that poor people with limited schooling are most vulnerable to misunderstandings and misinformation about how contraceptives work and how their choices may be directed.
What's important to note, however, is that we have to always go deeper. When you actually look at the reports that the UN itself puts out about unmet need, what you see is that the unmet need for contraception can never be met by contraception. The 222 million women that they see and can identify as not using contraception will not use it. Why not? The UN tells us. They've done all the research. They won't use it because it gives them health side effects that they don't want to deal with, or because they have religious or ethical concerns, or because it doesn't fit within their culture, or because their family has decided not to use it. What we can see then is that no amount of contraception meets the need these women have. But we can start to think maybe there are other ways we can meet the needs these women have to understand their health and their bodies and to achieve the goals that they may want to achieve.
Learning about FEM has been very eye-opening for me.
So have you taken our quiz? It's a FEM quiz about like how much you know about health and hormones and the connection. Women can know when they're fertile or infertile. Oh, true. True, ovulation is a sign of health. Well done.
All right.
Estrogen and progesterone influence everything in a woman's body. Estrogen is necessary to her bone tissue formation, her muscle formation, her blood circulation, all of the activities that are happening in a continual way, such as the renewal of her brain cells and the balancing of her moods. If estrogen is imbalanced, we have difficulties in each of these areas. Progesterone relaxes and maintains all these same body systems. She needs the right levels at the right time for her body and her health to function. If those hormones are off, if she has hormonal abnormalities, she will have all of these types of symptoms, and she'll experience additional things like acne, mood swings, depression, weight gain. All of these things are signs of hormonal abnormalities. But here, when we take a look at the pill or other hormonal contraceptive forms, what we're doing in a way is putting a big blanket of high dosage hormones onto her hormones, which has the benefit in many instances of alleviating the symptoms that she is experiencing, but it doesn't identify or treat the underlying imbalances that she has initially.
All right. I wrote that it's important to try to understand your hormones and body throughout the stage of puberty.
Because now I actually know why, the reasons and why and the changes and causes in my body and what important things that I need to do because of it.
You saying that you have to try and get at least 30 minutes of exercise every single day, 8 hours of sleep every single night. It made me confident.
My name is Edison and I'm in 5th grade. My name is Lavon.
Hormones. It's the signals that come from our brain, and it tells our body, and it's the thing that causes all that growth and development to occur.
So you start thinking brain, and then it shows it's like text messages, like cells.
There's going to be 2 different categories of changes that your body's going to experience. So we're going to need this first one for you. Got that? Physical, and then the second one, the case. Emotional.
You have these changes, like in your mood, like from happy, mad, sad, angry, anxious, having that anxiety.
So
So these tiny little things that are hormones have a huge impact on our bodies.
Research shows us that programs that teach a very clear vision of personal identity and worldview are highly effective. And if we can teach an anthropology that's rooted in the dignity of the person, that teaches them an understanding of who they are as subjects and not objects, we see some astounding numbers that once we get from kindergarten through high school are giving us very high success rates.
Kenya and Africa in general receives a lot of aid in various things. Could be in education, so comes in forms of books. But however, sometimes and many times with strings attached. If it's the books, what curriculum are we going to study? Is it in tandem with our culture and the social setting? Is it what people want? Then those are the questions to ask when this aid comes in. Because then sometimes the general population is pushed to do something that just goes even against their values, but it has come in form of aid.
Every person has dignity.
Universal. It means every person has dignity. Do people who are old and sick have human dignity?
Yes.
Do people who have committed a crime have dignity?
Yes.
Do our families have dignity?
Yes.
Do children have dignity?
Yes.
Every person has
dignity.
The second word.
Intrinsic. Our dignity is with us and our entire life. It's a part of who we are.
Now I learned that human dignity is of special value of every human person, and that affects your life and how you think about other people.
It changed the way that I behave in school.
I thought the world was just a big fight, and now I see people trying to make the world better.
Desmond is a hero because he was risking his life for other people's life.
Your job right now is to identify your hero. You're going to?
Identify your hero.
I think it's going deeper into anthropology, to search together with the kids the reasons why they should behave responsibly, why they should respect their human dignity, the human dignity of the others.
If we agree that the human person has dignity, we agree that we are subjects and not objects. Almost everyone is going to go with us that far. You can ignore this for now and jump right here. The fact that we are subjects and not objects has consequences that matter.
Obviously, if there is an objective reality, if there are objective values, they tell us something for our choices. So we don't choose whatever, we choose what is good, what is positive in the reality. And then we build on this freedom for excellence notion, which then explains us how we should behave or how we should use our freedom. So wherever I come, to London, to Ukraine, to Albania, to, I don't know, Hungary, Austria, in all these parts of Europe, the response is similar because, for example, just the CTP, it resonates with some deeper values which are so close to the human person, but they are somehow lost through all these cultural things happening through social media, etc. So young people are not maybe reflecting on them, but when you help them to dig into them, they are very happy that someone finally proposed something they maybe believed for a long time but didn't know how to explain.
And you have these very different groups of young people who all signed up to come and listen to you talk, and not only talk, but to read this very thick book within a week and discuss these topics in their free time. And every time I do it, since I've known the certified training program for so long, I'm always like, oh, are they actually gonna read this? Are they actually gonna sit down and take the time? Is anyone's gonna even read the first chapter? And then you get there and you have this very diverse group of people in front of you, and they've not only read it, but they've thought about it, and they bring up the best kind of arguments.
It's going into depth of the topics, approaching things comprehensively in different levels, through programs, through advocacy, through education. I think the youth were hungry for this kind of language, for this kind of approach, non-ideological, non-partisan, positive, recognizing the truth of the other, and in a clear but also empathetic way. No one is a complete relativist in a practical life. No one can live because you have to make choices. You have to say that some choices are better than the others. No one approves all possible moral behaviors, obviously.
Why? Because there are some fundamental values of each society which you cannot transgress by autonomous decisions. These values, fundamental values, which in the EU would be these European values, there is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, European Convention of Human Rights, national constitutions, which elaborate these values.
It was really inspiring. It was really like, look at these guys, how they are patient. It's real. It's not just a dream. It's not just wishing something that could never happen. It's real. These persons are now fighting for things that are essential to us. Even like us in Middle East, North Africa, maybe it's more essential for us since like we have too much violations, unfortunately. So like these are persons like are fighting for this. I should like get involved with this. I should get in board to join them. Maybe like I have some ideas to help with. Maybe I have some voice to have, or maybe I representing this flag, this blue flag of World Youth Alliance, can just be enough in order to have some right things back home.
As we all know, we had a revolution in 2011 that is called the first revolution of Arab Spring, and everyone, especially the youth at that moment, were looking into NGOs, into associations in order to be involved with, in order to be engaged.
For 2 years into all over Tunisia, I trained more than about 100 participants, doing about 16 community awareness activities for different topics. And then like I came back to CTP, so I became a trainer, CTP trainer. So now I'm organizing regularly CTP trainings all over Tunisia in order to have more involved YA members.
We've enjoyed a very solid and increasingly exciting membership base that has only grown through the years, through the work of all the other regional directors that have come after me, who have really done such a great job in increasing membership in the region.
So my second month in the World Youth Alliance, I was, super excited about YA, and for 1 week, I recruited like almost 3,000 new YA members from my school visits. I was like driving different provinces, schools, and at certain days of the week, I didn't have any members joining me, but my mom was there helping me with all these school tours. So at times she'd be the ones like taking photo, making sure the presentation is ready. So, she's heard me introduce YA like several times. She even tells about YA through her friends. And then she asks like, you have to bring back charter cards, like brochures when you go home so we can give them, to more young people. And just early this year, we opened like a chapter in my province in Antique. So now she's kind of like the moderator of YA in my province. So that's something that's very exciting. Like, she's like the #1 support for YA.
How many members has your mom signed up?
I don't know. I would have to check.
Today in Nigeria, we run the biggest non-violence campaign for election called Vote Not Fight. So today we're running a big program with young girls across Nigeria. All of that has a strong drawing from my experience with World Youth Alliance.
Everything I have learned at World Youth Alliance about human rights, but also about their foundation and human dignity is what I need every day now in my work in the Austrian Parliament.
I think like I got like many like job offers with NGOs, maybe like that have like budgets maybe higher than YA, or like and like positions in the world, maybe like they are well known more than YA, but like it's all, and they pay well also, but like what is special about YA is like the fact, for example, like the fact of being just training for just the trainings or for just the knowledge is kind of special. Maybe like maybe like, okay, I want to get involved with what I want to be one of the board member. I want to work in this organization, but for now, I prefer to do it just for free, since like it's too authentic, and especially that with the readings and with the values that we are defending it. So like I think it's too pure. Maybe the term. I don't know. Like my English is not that good.
How impacted my life? Well, completely. I can say that completely changed my life.
But I also learned what commitment means, and real engagement, and working with people for a higher goal. And that's something that inspired me very deeply, and that today fills the motivation with which I go into every day in my work in the Austrian Parliament. I'm most grateful to World Youth Alliance, to the many friends I made that in a way stayed my best friends still until today.
I've met, like, I had that chance to meet like many persons like Gervoje from World Youth Alliance Europe, who is like a great guy, great tall guy, and when like you just talk to him, you feel that passion. So like it's like kind of organization that takes human dignity as an art.
And for me, Waya always comes in the right moment in my life, either when I'm dealing with things that are intolerably tough or things that are amazingly beautiful. And Waya has always put the right perspective on it.
I've always wanted to work in international policy making. And one of the reasons I studied environmental engineering was to have a technical background on which to base policy decisions for development. And I know that, I've always known that there's a moral dimension to development because it impacts human beings. Our approach is to meet people at a place where we can agree. And I think that all human beings in their lives experience like an injuring of their dignity. So when people are rejected or disrespected, they know they've had their dignity denied. And I think when you start from that place of experience that all human beings shared, even if we can't talk about the source of dignity necessarily, we know that no one can take it away. And I think people respect that.
Yeah, this is definitely not just a pink story. I mean, my last 6 years, every year I was thinking, okay, now I endure the hardest year, and next year it will be easier. And then it just, something even worse happened. So yeah, I mean, in all these years, it was never easier, but it was different. So what helped me is that we weren't going through all the same problems all over again, but we overcame some of them, and then new problems emerged. So it's definitely so when I say this is a positive thing, I mean it in a sense, this is a very hard thing, but meaningful thing. So it makes sense, like as Frankel says, if you have a meaning, you're able to endure all these things. So it's simply, the positiveness of it is deeper than just being excited or having fun.
So I guess the way I like to think of it is that we would all get upset. We would go to Anna. She would sit us down. She would tell us a lot of very inspiring things. And it was almost like, you know, the Transfiguration, basically. We're up on the mountain, and we're like, let's all set up tents here and stay for a couple of days and bask in the glory of this vision of the World Youth Alliance. And then the next day we'd be at the Pogue or at the convent crying again, wondering, and having no idea what we were going to do next.
Let's say there is a real sense of collaboration and sharing knowledge, sharing goods, and working together. And
Get out of my kitchen, Anna!
This caused pandemonium for 2 hours, and in this time period, the world divided.
And, you know, I was a musician, and we were studying together, and I just realized that I had found something that tied together everything that I believed. And it was the complete opposite of what I thought I believed.
And for everyone that has supported this work, for everyone, present, past, and the future. And to everyone who has put in a cent into the work of the World Youth Alliance, I want to say it's been a right investment. Lives are being shaped, lives are being touched. Caroline met Gustavo, met his met big brother Mark de Jong, and quite a lot of traveling around.
It is where ideas of tolerance and respect for differences are fostered, cherished, and then carried out into the wider community.
And I was going to go and collect an Italian friend from the airport. Had enough money to buy the train fare, but I didn't have any money to buy the food, and it was a bit of a sacrifice taking the train and not having the food. But when I got to the station, there had been a huge strike in Belgium, and all the workers had provided food for each other. They had huge, enormous quiches, the best quiches I've ever tasted in my life, and they were just handing them out and literally gave me a quiche like this big to take away and eat. And so we were always provided for, however unusual it happened.
All right, next one. Do you remember how much you were paid and how you made things work financially?
And so we didn't have a casserole to cook the pasta in. We looked up at the ceiling, and there was a big glass light on the ceiling. So we unscrewed that, poured the hot water into this glass lampshade, and cooked the pasta in it. And I have to say, it was delicious. I highly recommend it.
Oh, actually turning into a sort of like, we could pull a bunch of clips of like Ollie's favorite food. Especially as I'm listening to it.
It's all about food, yeah. Basically, Wire was all about food and surviving.
And I have no idea how we made ends meet. I think it was a miracle or something. Basically, we live still with our parents,
And I'm walking back with these two new interns, and we're walking next to a container where they throw things away. And I see these carpets, from the corner of my eye, and I'm like, oh my God, carpets! So I climb into this container, and the two interns are like, I cannot believe this. What is she doing? What's she doing? So then I say, come and help me, get the carpet. So I throw them over the container. So their first job as an intern was to carry the carpets to their new house out of the garbage container, basically. But I didn't have any complex about it because, it was survival at the time. And 50 euros a month, you don't care about where you're finding it as long as it looks good. There were no holes. We cleaned it afterwards, but
it's a lot of work. It's so much work. It's an incredible amount of work.
Hence, two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Is this okay? Yeah, that looks great. Is like this? No, look at me like this. Is this okay, Claire? Is this casual? It's okay. It's perfect. What were the other options? What were the cross-legged pose?
We were to put structures, we were to sell this message about human dignity to young people.
There will always be a piece of home in New York for me, because I think that's where New York is the home also of Waya. So in a sense, Waya has been synonymous to a sense of home.
I was expecting my firstborn son, Victor, and the World Youth Alliance surprised me with a bridal shower and bought oh, it's so nice. I need a tissue.
When you begin to see people's lives change, or the penny drops and they understand that ideas can change your own life, and it can change the lives of the people around you, it can change your culture, then why wouldn't you do it? Of course you would.
And this is human dignity. Like, human person as a privileged place where reality comes through in its most beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you all the staff. Thank you for my fellow members for all these years. Thank you very much. Bye.